Mitch White is a USPTA member and former NCAA Division I player who played on the Challenger Tour, coached several ITF and ATP players, and served as a director of tennis before pursuing opportunities outside of tennis. Over the last 20 years, he's grown and sold several businesses, and most recently, he was the CFO, COO for a company that was number 371 on the Inc. 5000. He's currently partner and COO for Be Well Company, skincare company, and is CEO of Culinary Health Solutions. Mitch has focused on the health and wellness space for the last 10 years. He's also co-chair of the USPTA Career and Leader Mentoring Program with myself and Mark Faber. Mitch, thanks for joining us today.
Thanks for having me, Kevin.
Mitch, with your team at Culinary Health Solutions, you created Performance Eating. Could you tell us what that is and why you started it?
Yeah, absolutely. First, I just want to thank you for creating this webinar series. I think it's been really valuable and helpful to a lot of folks that I've spoken with. So I just want to thank you for that.
Great.
So Culinary Health Solutions was created after I witnessed multiple family members and friends overcoming life-threatening illnesses through changing their lifestyle and their eating habits. And it led me to actually want to make that my focus in helping people live longer and healthier lives. And it really stems from my wife, Natalie, being diagnosed with secondary progressive MS July 2nd, 2014. I'd had to carry her into the ER, unable to walk. Actually, that final morning when her health had been declining over 6 months, she got out of bed, could not walk, was crawling to the bathroom, and threw up approximately 20 times on the way to the bathroom. And I knew she was seriously ill at that point, and so I took her to the ER, and she was diagnosed right there with either vasculitis or MS. And we met with the neurologist within 2 weeks and confirmed that it was MS, told us it was irreversible, and then gave us some literature on the drug protocols that they had to try to treat MS, which is, again, it's considered irreversible, and their drug protocols are just designed to slow down your imminent death. We took those couple weeks to actually do some research on if there were any natural solutions to reversing or helping improve autoimmune disease. And we came across a doctor that had created a protocol that she'd reversed her own MS since the year 2000. And we just dove headfirst into it. We went all in, and shockingly, within 3 days, she was very much a different person. And within 6 months, she'd virtually reversed all of her symptoms. And she did all this while taking 0 medication. So we knew we were on to something. And during that 6 months, I also saw my health radically improve. Having been a top athlete in my younger days before going into business, I'd put on 50 pounds. Well, after the 6 months on this clean living, clean eating lifestyle, I dropped 50 pounds. I'd reversed a ton of issues that I'd had, including joint pain, allergies. I actually reversed my eyesight and improved it 30%, so my prescription changed 30%. And so it was just shocking the amount of improvement that I felt, and I knew at that point that we were on to something that could be helpful to other people.
So I think, many people would maybe stop at that point. They'd experienced improvements, vast improvements like you and your wife did. What prompted you to then take that next step and craft this into something that could be beneficial to others?
It really just was the desire to try to share with the world that you can take charge of your own health and how you could improve your own health. And what we had discovered was going down this path of clean eating, clean living lifestyle wasn't as difficult as we thought it would be. We ended up realizing that it was just a matter of making smart choices and eating the things that fit the flavor profiles that you wanted, but staying within the confines of this approach to eating. And really what we did at that point is I reconnected with a partner from a previous venture, a fellow named Ken Emmer, who's a holistic chef and a wellness coach. And he and I took the collective knowledge of everything from healthy eating, human behavior and patterns, coaching techniques, the specific diets that we had gone on for my wife to reverse the MS, and his previous training as a wellness coach. And we spent 6 months, 10 hours a day locked up in an office to develop a system that anybody would be able to use to make dietary changes the way we were, but with following, your own personal issues. And it had to be easy, it had to be trackable, and it had to not require cooking skills because so few people have the time or the ability really to cook. And so that's what prompted us and the path we took to get started.
Now, it's clear that you had put a lot of effort into creating an approach that would be manageable for people who take part in this. And once you had your approach, how did you take it to market?
So we started by focusing on corporate wellness. That seemed to be the easier, lower barrier to entry. Corporations are constantly looking for ways to improve the health of their employees. So we ended up working a deal with one of the top manufacturing companies in the South. And Ken and I worked with 400 employees. We traveled to 13 cities over 6 states for an entire year. And we taught it live. We took this methodology and worked with these 400 people live. We went back to each location 3 times in order to see the improvements and help refine the changes they were making and the choices. And at the end of that year, we saw that we were getting amazing results with people. And so we developed a software system, and that's what we currently have now, is a software online coaching system. And I ended up bringing it into tennis because I got back into the tennis space. I was asked to come in and be co-director of a junior academy. So I was spending a couple hours a day working with kids again and really enjoying it. And the director there was interested in what we were doing, and he asked if I could bring that program in. So we spent 2 years refining the programs specifically for tennis players from a performance perspective so that we could work with these kids in particular over a 6-week period and see where they were making improvements that would actually apply to their game and to their performance. So it started as a wellness for corporation and general health and well-being, and we've tailored it down into being a focus on performance versus just general well-being. But it works for both.
Now, did you witness some improvements in the players themselves, or get quotes, comments from them about how it affected them?
Yeah, absolutely. From players, from parents, from even outside coaches. Really interesting, different improvements that we saw. And some of the basic things that you'd expect, like improvement in speed, some improvement in strength. But some of the things that were interesting that we weren't expecting to see so much change in was injury recovery. We found that a number of our players recovered more quickly from injuries than some that were chronic injuries they'd had by making changes in their eating habits, and that had largely to do with inflammatory foods. So we helped them identify which foods were inflammatory to their body that were causing or contributing to the injury, helped them eliminate those or swap or change for foods that were not inflammatory, and saw incredible results. And then probably the most shocking was during these programs that we were teaching once a week. Like I said, it was 6-week cycles is what we've turned it into, and you can just do them multiple times. But we found that we were actually bringing food to these programs so the kids could eat these different types of foods while we were talking. And we had parents coming up left and right saying, "How did you get our kids to eat salad? My child hates lettuce." And so it was really interesting to see that everything from their taste buds changing to their performance and actual health and recovery changing were kind of pleasant surprises.
Now, your performance eating program is available for pros to get involved with and create a revenue stream for themselves right now. I mean, how does that work, and what does the business model look like?
Okay, well, the first thing you've got to do is get trained in the system. And we originally, when we were doing the corporate wellness focus, we actually had a 30-hour online training program that was pretty extensive and intensive, and it included doctors, nurses, wellness coaches, health practitioners. What we've ended up doing is refining this down to a 3-hour program. It's 3 one-hour sessions that you sign up for and you get trained in by my partner, Ken. It's all online. He's there for help and support if needed. And we're actually doing, for USPTA folks that are on this call, we're doing a half price for the next 24 hours, $49.99. So typically $100, and we're doing it for half, anybody that wants to sign up for it. And how it works, in fact, I'll tell you how to sign up for that at the end of this here. But the way it works is that you would get your students, you invite them to sign up for a series, which lasts 6 weeks. Teach them once a week, typically at the same time for approximately 45 minutes. You can charge, we're actually flexible. We're recommending that you charge $75 for the 6 weeks, so it's $12.50 an hour. for your players. And you can hold these through Zoom, WebEx, FaceTime, any platform that you're comfortable with. But you'll sign them up and you actually collect the money and you'll just pay a platform fee. 1 to 10 players is $10 a month. So, I mean, it's very affordable. This is really designed to be something that you can explore how much you want it to grow. You can offer multiple groups each week. It's really up to you on how you do it. But the first thing, again, is you sign up for the training. You'll have access to our web app and our dashboard, and the players or students will also have their own web app and dashboard. And we manage all of that on the back end through our proprietary technology, and it's completely secure and private. And only the coach and the individual student can see the data that the student's reporting through the app. Use that information to help guide them using the system that will train you in that 3 hours.
Okay, so personality and otherwise, what kind of pro do you think is best and worst suited to taking this on?
Well, that's an interesting question. I think from a personality side, anybody that has some basic understanding of nutrition and food and is good with follow-up, and also helps if you already have a current customer base. That's one of the joys of this, is that if you already have a customer base of students for tennis, a lot of them are looking for something to do, and they're interested in something you may have to offer because you've already established credibility since they're your students. But if you have some basic understanding of nutrition and food and you're good with follow-up, it's actually really an easy thing to do for those folks because we have the back end covered with support, tech support, and also if you just ever need help, you can reach out and we can help you. The worst suited is people who aren't good with follow-up. And really because the main results, these players will use the tools on their own, but your guidance and you're holding these students accountable and having them give feedback on how they're doing, how they're improving, where they're seeing the change is really where the real results lie. So you really should be good at follow-up. If that's not something you're good at, they'll still get some benefit, but I'd say it would be a good bit less than if you're really on top of staying connected to those players.
And have you found that when players get engaged with this, that some of their parents start to get involved as well?
They absolutely do. In fact, the parents were getting involved immediately. Some of the parents actually were staying around. As we were doing this live initially, were staying around to listen to what we were doing and then would actually apply what we had taught that day to what they would choose for food that evening. It was typically done during the academy sessions, and then parents would take their kids out to eat and have the kids reiterate what they had learned when they would go and make menu selections or talk about the food that they wanted to eat or something new that they may want to try. So interestingly, the kids were the ones that were really causing the parents to be more engaged. And it caused the families really to interact well. Is another side benefit we found. It was just another way for the kids and parents to be involved in each other's lives in a way that was kind of natural and organic.
What do you like most about working in performance eating?
I think the thing I like the most is the shock that we get from people, that the self-discovery that they find, things that they think they like or things that they don't think they like, and then discover that it's entirely opposite. You may think that you absolutely love a certain food, but when you go through the menu planning and then the results tracking and seeing how these foods affect you, you actually find that maybe you don't eat them very often. And to find people making these discoveries is really interesting. It's probably the most enjoyable, aside from people coming up to us constantly or sending us emails saying that they're just so thankful that they had some outlet for working with the kids, especially with the kids, because parents trying to make recommendations, the kids don't want to listen to their parents. So there's somebody else there making these recommendations that made a difference. So that really just the kind of the cohesiveness of the family and the shock of what they discovered was the most enjoyable for us.
Okay, and let's see, as we wrap up here, is there anything else you'd like to share with the listeners today?
I'd really say that, and several of the speakers, I think almost every speaker that you've had in this series has mentioned that in these days, pros really need to develop additional skill sets and have outside revenue streams. I mean, this is prior even to this whole pandemic. but especially nowadays. So in our opinion, you've got to develop additional skill sets, and personal branding is something that's really important for tennis pros as well. It's such a competitive environment. So the idea of having additional skill sets that you can offer outside of tennis are really valuable. And so I think the last thing I'd say is that we just designed this whole program to do any of three things. One is to drive revenue almost immediately once you've gotten trained and learned to do this. It's to add value to your business and your personal brand because you're adding new skill sets. And then lastly, it's a really good tool to stay connected or re-engage with your client base, especially these days where we're separated from our students. It's very easy for people, 1, 2, 3 months down the road, their priorities are changing, maybe their budgets change, a lot of things are changing. And so the idea that hoping that all of those students are going to be there when the switch gets turned back on in however many months from now is a little daunting. So the idea of being able to engage them now with something that keeps them in the loop and keeps your credibility high with them, and it actually adds the value that they're looking for, as we're all trapped in our houses, so we're all looking for something creative and hopefully healthy to do. That would be the final thought.
So if somebody wants to get involved with this, how do they contact you? What's the next step?
So the way you do it is you literally will just text the word USPTA to the number 66866. So USPTA doesn't have to be uppercase or lowercase. Any combination will do. 66866. And you'll get a text back, which you then just follow the instructions. You'll enter your email, and that will lead you to a link that allows you to sign up. You'll choose the dates that you want to do your training, and that's it. You will get started immediately. It's very simple. And actually, that was a question I had. Is this something that, and I'll ask you this again later, Kevin, but if there's the ability for these folks to go to see this webinar afterwards, I've got an additional link that I can forward you that they can follow as well.
Okay, fantastic, Mitch. Thanks so much.
My pleasure.